All right, I'm going to begin with a bit of bad news. Since the conference has gone so well so far, and I greatly appreciate all the great discussions this morning, but we do have a bit of bad news. Paul and Renee, can you please stand up? I don't know if you can see what was in the local newspaper this morning, but you guys are actually wanted here in Chicago. And do you remember what you did to be wanted? Violating the integrity of the president's house. That is not... Our Dutch friends tried to break into Obama's house a few nights ago. Just guys who looked like you guys and spoke Dutch. But there was a little newspaper article that came out about you two guys trying to break in, and we've taken care of it, though. We had to use next year's funding for SPY to keep you out of jail, but everything's okay. So thanks a lot for coming all the way from Holland, and the president sends his regards, too. Okay, I would now like Anya to come up and give an introduction to our distinguished lunchtime speaker.
Before I introduce Mike, I just wanted to thank the organizers of the conference, especially Edie and everyone else who's done such a great job to bring everybody here, since this is the last time we're getting together. And all of our wonderful undergraduates who've been here helping keep time and make sure everybody knew where they were going. So it's really, really great that we had the support. And to all of you for coming all the way out here. Thank you so much, Gary, for coming all the way from California. And so Mike Norton is at the Harvard Business School, and he's the co-author of an excellent book called Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. And Edie and I were visiting San Diego last spring where we heard him give an excellent talk, and we immediately said we think Mike would be great for a keynote for SPY, and he immediately agreed to come, even though he's only here for less than 24 hours, just for us. And I think Mike's a great guy and does very exciting research. And one of the projects that he's worked on, which is not related to SPY, but I always think of anytime I go to IKEA and buy something there, is on the IKEA effect. And that's the idea that if you build something with your own hands, you're going to love it more than if you buy it already made. So without further ado, here's Mike.
So thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I always like to go to philanthropy conferences because this is not a joke. People are way nicer. So if you're a business school professor, you go to different kinds of conferences, and some of them are kind of rooms filled with grumpy men, and other ones are people who are friendly and trying to do nice things in the world. So I'm not going to say what the grumpy men conferences are, but it's great to be here. So I am going to talk a bit about giving and happiness today. I'm going to talk a little bit less about happiness and more about a bunch of field experiments that we've done with different companies with different interventions for how to get people to give more and or how to have people feel better about the giving that they do. But I do want to start talking a little bit about happiness because all of the interventions that we design, we're designing them to try to not just get people to give more, although that's nice, but make sure that we're designing the giving in a way that will make people feel happy or that they're having an impact or even just that it was fun and engaging and interesting to do. And the reason we do that is because we can see that if we design the thing correctly, it will lead to more giving in the future. So I wanted to talk about happiness first because that really informed all of the interventions that I'll show you later in the talk. So I always start with this phrase, money can't buy happiness, because first off, I think it's funny, and also because it's a super common phrase in the world. So almost every world religion, in one way or another, has something about how money can't buy you happiness. Every self-help book that's ever been written has a chapter that's called Money Can't Buy Happiness. Some of you probably have a friend who says things like this to you, like in a very pontificating way. Usually they do a lot of yoga. Often they're very wealthy, so it's even more irritating. And I want to suggest actually that they're kind of right and they're kind of wrong. So It's kind of the case that money can't buy happiness, but actually what we've done in our research with my co-author Liz Dunn is to think about other ways to spend your money that can in fact make you happier. So the reason that money doesn't seem to make people happier, a lot of you I'm sure know, it's in the media a lot, Danny Kahneman and others, famous finding that if you're quite poor and you make more income, your well-being does increase. But pretty soon after that, more money doesn't seem to make you that much happier. It kind of levels off. And it's a little bit depressed. Does anybody know the number, the income number at which it levels off in the US? 75,000. Yeah, 75,000. This is one of the few social science facts that people know in the world, I have found. Right around 75,000. It's not that more makes you unhappy. It's just that it seems to sort of wear off a little bit up there. Now that's pretty depressing because that suggests once you get there, life is just an unending monotony, and that's a shame. But there's another way to think about that, which is perhaps the reason that it goes up here and then doesn't go up so much over there is not that it can't keep going up, but maybe the things that people do with money down here are different than the things that people do with money out here. So we can think about, let's figure out what people are doing with their money and see if what predicts happiness best, and then figure that out, and then say, let's design interventions where we can have people do more of the thing that seems to be good and less of the thing that seems to be bad, and see if we can increase their happiness. So a lot of the research that we've done is exactly on that. And the way that we started this research was actually just to ask people, how do you spend your money? So think about if I said, think about the last month, or if you went into your credit card statement, and I said, categorize your purchases over the last month. What did you buy? And basically, nearly everyone says stuff for themselves. It's just a huge category of what we all buy. And it's totally fine. You got to have a roof over your head. You got to have some clothes. Got to have some coffee. Totally fine. But it's a huge percent of what we spend is exactly on stuff. Little and big stuff, which is OK, except when you look at the data. It turns out that stuff is really uncorrelated with how happy you are with your life. Now, this is correlational data. But for example, the size of your house in lots of surveys has almost no relationship to how happy you are with your life overall. How nice your car is has almost no relationship to how happy you are with your life overall. They're super related to how much you like your house and your car. So we're not crazy. A great house is better than a bad house. But they don't seem to change our overall feeling about our lives. And the problem with that is these are the two biggest purchases that most people make. And even if they like their house and they like their car, they're actually not paying off in a different emotional life for people overall. So we thought, I wonder if it isn't so much that money can't buy you happiness, but that what's really going on is just if you think money can't buy happiness, you're just not spending it right. That you're buying things that are in this world instead of buying things that maybe are in this world. So then Liz and I said, well, what are other things that people could do than stuff for themselves that might pay off differently in happiness? And everyone in this room will be, I think, pleased to learn that one of the biggest categories that we've worked on, and others have worked on, of course, as well, is this idea that maybe if you shift the focus from buying stuff for yourself and instead shift the focus outward to other people, literally just use your money to benefit others rather than you, maybe at least some of the time, if that happens in the most effective way, it will make you happier than spending on yourself. So I want to tell you about one experiment that we did there just with regular folks, and then I'll talk about the things that we've done with companies. But just to give you a sense of how we think about these experiments and how to approach the problem. So the simple experiment is literally, let's have some people spend money on themselves and other people spend money on somebody else. And then let's call them up and let's say, how you doing? And just see who's higher. It's the simplest thing we could possibly do. And we can do it with all sorts of things. Let's have you do this, you do that, you do that, you do that, you do that, and call you up later and say who's happy. And we can start to rank things. Very crude, but this is how we started this research. So our student, Lara Acton, who's now at Simon Fraser, went out on a college campus one morning in Vancouver with a box filled with envelopes. And she stopped people and said, would you like to be in an experiment? And for some strange reason, people often say yes. So if they said yes, she said, thank you. How happy are you? And a bunch of other questions, and wrote it down. And then she gave them an envelope. And some people got an envelope with a slip of paper inside that said, by 5 p.m. today, spend this money on a bill, an expense, or a gift for yourself. We call that kind of the personal treatment. But other people got a slip of paper in their envelope that said, by 5 p.m. today, spend this money on a gift for others or a charitable donation. And the only other thing we did was we slipped some money in the envelope. So some people got $5 and some people got $20. Sometimes when I give this talk, people think that that's like Monopoly money. It's from Canada, which is a nation to our north that actually has their own currency. And this is it. Sometimes people know the lady on the right, but maybe not. So 4 groups of people, right? 5 for yourself, 20 for yourself, 5 for somebody else, 20 for somebody else. Then she calls them up that night and says, how you feeling and what'd you do with the money? And you can think about who's going to be happier at the end of the day. One clear prediction would be $20 is way better than $5. If I'm doing the math right, it's 4 better than 5. So those people should totally be happier than the 5. Another clear prediction is money for yourself is awesome. If you went and bought something for yourself, that'd be a great day. And of course, what we think is maybe that would be okay, but what might be really interesting and emotionally compelling is if you take that amount of money and instead spend it on somebody else. So let me show you what people bought. These are college students. So in the personal treatment, Liz calls it tchotchke. People bought junk for themselves. Some of the participants were females, so they bought makeup and earrings and things like that. In the pro-social condition, as you can imagine, people bought very different stuff for someone else. So one woman said she bought a stuffed animal for her niece. Other people said they gave money to homeless people or they gave money to street performers. So you're all probably good scientists. So you're thinking, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's just that earrings are more boring than stuffed animal. So why didn't you control for the thing they buy and just see if you get something for yourself versus something for somebody else? Does it still make you happier? And we had a thing that happened, a natural experiment that happened, which we weren't anticipating, which is if you give a college undergraduate $5 at 9 a.m., what do you think they do with it? Starbucks. We saw a crazy, crazy effect. They ran screaming to Starbucks for a free coffee. But the only difference is some people ran screaming and got a coffee and drank it themselves, and other people ran screaming and got a coffee and gave it to somebody else. Now again, put on your cynical hat. It's awesome to get free coffee and drink it. That's why we do it all the time. Is it awesome to get a coffee and get psyched and then give it to someone else and stand there like an idiot while they drink the coffee and you've got nothing? No, obviously from one perspective that would not be a happiness-inducing activity, but we thought I bet actually people will be happier. And in fact, that's exactly what we find. So it's not that buying stuff for yourself over the course of a day makes you less happy. It doesn't. It's this world. It's just this world. There's nothing wrong with having another coffee, but it doesn't seem to change your day. But people who spend on somebody else, if we look at them from the morning to the evening, they're actually happier. And we can also see in lots of surveys that we've done all over the world and experiments that we've done all over the world that in general, people who give more are happier. It's also the case that people who are happy give more, so there's this kind of loop. But we can also show, and this is of course why we like experiments, that if I take random people and make them give, I can still make them happier on average than these people over here. And I raised that super simple paradigm because that's really exactly what I'll show you in some of the next experiments I talk about. Just this very simple thing. Let's give these people money for themselves. Let's give these people money for somebody else. And let's see what happens. Let's see if the money for somebody else people feel differently, interact with others differently, behave differently in ways that are interesting and meaningful. So to get there, I want to talk about this model of corporate philanthropy. So I'm just going to get a drink. Excuse me. That wasn't like a pause for effect. That would have been cool, but it totally wasn't. So, would you like some? Actually, we did. That reminds me. We did an experiment once. So some people will say, if you gave money away and it's free, right? So we gave you $5 and then you got to give it to somebody else. That's not really giving, right? Because it was free money. It turns out that actually when you give your own money, it's more psychologically powerful, not less. So in fact, costly giving makes you even happier than giving windfall kinds of money. So this corporate philanthropy model, it's pretty simple, actually. Here's how most corporate philanthropy works. I'm exaggerating, but if you look at it, actually, this is what happens. So a company says, let's be nice, which is awesome, and I'm really glad when companies do that, don't get me wrong. But the way that they're nice is they say, let's pick a charity, and let's give a sum of money to that charity. And basically, they just give the money, and then they either tell the employees with an email, we did something nice, and or they tell their customers, hey, here's some ads to show that we did something nice. And there's many problems with that model. So number one, all of the money goes to a single charity, And it's possible that the employees or the customers don't care about that charity. The way that companies usually pick the charity is the CEO says, I really like dolphins, so let's give all the money to dolphin research. And every other stakeholder in the company is like, dolphins? Why are we spending all this money on dolphins? And the other problem is only the CEO, in a sense, gets to give the money. We know that anytime a single person gets to give even $5 or $20, that's what I just showed you, it changes their day. In this model, the employees and customers hear about it, but they don't actually get to do it themselves. So the other model that we have done with lots of companies now, it's a pretty simple switch, actually, and I'll talk about the employee version first. It's just that rather than give all the money directly to one cause, you give it to your employees in small increments, and they can give to whatever charity they care about. Now think about how different that is. You show up to work one morning with an email in your inbox that says, hey, we're committed to being a nice company. Here's a $20 voucher for you, and you can give it to any of these charities that you care about. So we did this exact experiment with an Australian company called Karma Currency and National Australia Bank. So National Australia Bank wanted to give money to charity. They were working with Karma Currency, and the idea was they were going to do the let's give the money directly to charity and tell our employees. And instead what we did was employees show up in the morning. It says, you've been given 50 karma bucks or 25 karma bucks, and you can spend it on any of these many charities. And then we can see what happens. And it turns out that when people get the money from their company, it actually increases their job satisfaction. So not only do they feel happier, which I've already shown you happens, but they actually say, I like my job more. And they say, this is the kind of company that I want to work at. Just from a very same amount of money going to charities, nothing else changed, and yet you can really impact people when you let them get involved in the giving, as opposed to just let it happen. Second model, very similar, same thing, except now the stakeholders in the middle are customers. So rather than say, hey, we do nice stuff, and we made an ad to show you that we do nice stuff, very simply, you can just give money directly to your customers and let them give to charity, and then see if they are more loyal to you and come back and spend more with you. So we did a field experiment with Crate & Barrel, who many of you probably know, but if you don't, it's a home goods, US-based home goods retailer. Most of their customers are kind of, I think it's about 70–75% women who are focused on improving their home. We did a field experiment with them. Crate & Barrel's done lots of charitable work over the years. Surveys of their customers show they had no idea that Crate & Barrel was doing anything pro-social at all. So they said that bummed them out because they wanted to be, they said we're doing nice things and we wish people would give us some credit for it. All we do is with DonorsChoose.org, it's a US-based nonprofit where public school teachers can post projects online, so mainly from low-income schools, post projects online saying, my school can't afford pencils, my school can't afford to buy these textbooks, my school can't afford to buy science equipment. And we can actually go on right now to the website and buy the science equipment for that classroom. And the teacher writes you a thank you note saying, thanks for this stuff. And even better, the kids write you thank you notes saying, I have a note from a kid that says, science is awesome, in crayon, like a little kid scrawl. No, they probably faked it, but still, it's an incredibly powerful model. Why? Think about it. I'm giving to a school, right? But I can pick which school I give to, and I can pick which thing I care about. So maybe I don't care about pencils, but I care a lot about music. Well, I can buy music equipment for a school. Or maybe I think actually sports are the key for kids. Well, I can buy sports equipment for the school. So Donors Choose really lets donors find exactly the thing that will make them the happiest. All we did with Crate & Barrel was, if you've ever bought something from Crate & Barrel, and I love them, but like all retailers, you buy something from them once, and then every day for the rest of your life, they send you emails with offers. Like 20% off your next thing, buy two, get one free, 50% this. That's marketing. I'm in marketing. Marketing works, actually. When you send people that stuff, they do sometimes click on it and buy more stuff. It's not wrong to do, it's irritating, but it's not wrong to do regular marketing. Think about this experiment. Instead of getting a $50 off your next purchase from us, you get email from Crate & Barrel that says, on your next purchase, totally non-contingent, thanks for being our customer. Here's a $50 voucher for DonorsChoose.org. And when you click the link, it just takes you to DonorsChoose.org. Now, for most marketers, this is a nightmare, right? So you have a customer reading an email from you, and they click it, and it takes them away from you to somebody else. That's like the worst business thing in the history of the world, is to send your customer elsewhere. But our thought was that may be the case, that it's a bit risky to send them away. But maybe, number one, people will open and read the email more to begin with. And number two, maybe if we track them over time, the offer might work, but maybe the Donors Choose gift card actually leads to a different kind of thought about the company that lasts for longer. And that's exactly what we see. So the emails from Donors Choose, open rates on emails from companies are extremely low. If you get like a 2% open rate, it's an amazing email campaign. I can't divulge the exact numbers, but open rates were higher. Click-through was higher. And we find when we look over a 6-month period that people who got the Donors Choose gift card come back to Crate & Barrel faster. So even though we sent them over to that website, they actually are more likely to come back to the Crate & Barrel website sooner than people who we sent the other stuff as usual. So I talked about those two in part just because they are the most similar to the first research we'd done. In other words, it's the intuition of you get something for yourself, you get something for somebody else, and let's see what happens. But that's really led us to a bunch of different interventions now, again, where we're always trying to think, can we make this compelling and interesting, and ideally make people happy when they engage with it in order to increase giving, but also make people feel good about the giving they're doing. So I thought I would just mention 3 other field projects that we have. Actually, I should say the first 2 we've done in the field, and the last one we're looking for someone to do it with us in the field. So if any of you are interested when we get there, shoot me an email or we can chat after this. So the first one was this idea of contingent match incentives. And the way that this works, and I should point out, Kevin, want to raise your hand? Kevin Conroy let us run this on Global Giving, so thanks, Kevin. Here's how this works. So you want people to commit to recurring donations, and they totally don't want to, because why would you ever want to do that? It's the worst thing in the world. So how can we get people to rethink their decision? And usually what it is I'll give today, and then it says, will you commit to recurring? And there's no reason to, right? Like, why would I commit to recurring? Because you just want to bug me over the next few months? So can we design some intervention where by committing to recurring, something else happens that's motivating and interesting and exciting that might make you more likely to commit to a recurring donation? And we do a very simple intervention, I think, but it works actually pretty well. And we've tried it in a few contexts now. So here's the typical way that giving works, right? What do you want to give? Just once, or do you want to click the other button? And nobody, you all know who run nonprofits, nobody clicks the other button ever. So how do we get people to click the other button? One thing we can do, which I know lots of us study, including me, is a matching donation. So if you click the other button, we'll match that donation, and then hopefully you would say, oh, that's great. So only if I commit to a recurring donation will this match kick in. But there's lots of papers on matches, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. I'll show you whether it works in this context or not. But we thought, is there a more different, interesting way to do this than just talk about a specific match that will happen? And here was the idea that we had. Instead of saying it's going to happen, instead we said a generous donor has agreed to match, but only if, and I'll show you the numbers in a second, only if X% of donors agree to give monthly. Now, this is weird, right? Because this is just strictly better. So this means if you give right now, it will be matched. Your dollars are going to be increased if you give. On this one, the expected value has to be lower because there's a chance the match won't happen. So you'd think that's not a very smart thing because people will say, oh, I shouldn't do this because it's never going to go through. But here's the psychology of contingent matches, okay? What's the number that we should put at X to make people say, oh, that's an interesting number. Maybe I'll try to give. I wasn't going to give, but now that I see if enough people give, something good's going to happen, maybe I should give instead. So the psychology of this is, imagine we set that at 25%. If 25% of donors give, we will match all donations. Well, what that tells you is, wow, they really don't expect very many people to give. So maybe this charity isn't that good. Maybe it's not that popular. It's like you're underconfident in your ability to get people to donate. So social proof is low in that case. If we put it at 100%, but the problem is that it's very low, but attainable, right? So if it's at 25%, it's super likely that the goal will be met. So there are these opposing forces. Think about if we set it at 100. So now only if 100% of people give will the match kick in. Well, then you think, wow, they must really be super confident in this cause if they actually believe that 100% of all people will commit to donation. So social proof is really high, but the problem is that attainability is super low because the chances that every single person will give is very, very unlikely. So that, of course, just leads you to think it's probably somewhere in the middle, where you're signaling enough that we really expect a lot of people to do this, but not so high that donors start to think, yeah, the match is never going to kick in. So I'll show you how we do this experiment to see what is the right number to do this. We worked again with Global Giving on this. This is just a sample page. Here is their checkout page. You pick a cause, then you donate one time or monthly, and you can upgrade to a recurring by dragging it down. We do the match, as I mentioned. So we're just going to match these. That's kind of a standard intervention to get people to give more. Then we added these other treatments to see what we could do. These are the match ones. We will match, but only if X% of you commit to a recurring donation today. And then we vary the percents. Maybe they're on the next one. Yeah. So we vary the percents. So only if 25, 50, 75, or 100% of people give. So I'll show you the results for committing to a recurring donation. Here's what you see. So first off, some of you might be interested. So that stopped working. So the match, which is the second column, there's no slight effect over control, but not that big. 25, 50, and 100, not so great. But 75 actually leads to an uptick in the percent of people recurring. Remember again that the standard match is guaranteed match, so strictly it's better. But the 75, only if 75% match, it's not that it's better, it's that it's more psychologically interesting for people because they start thinking about, and we can do other studies to show, they start thinking about, wow, I wonder how many people are going to do it, and I wonder if it'll actually kick in or not, and maybe I should give more because that would be cool if it kicked in. This psychology starts to happen, so rather than just drop-down menu, I don't care, we engage people in some interesting process in their heads, and it makes them, in the end, more likely to commit. Now, it's a couple of percentage points, so it's not like everybody suddenly decides to commit to recurring donation, but these are, again, recurring donors. So it's not that they are giving once and then they're gone. These are people who are signing up to keep doing this month after month, so the return is actually quite high. And we even looked in the data to see, you can imagine that you would sign up for recurring to make the thing happen, and then come back tomorrow and cancel it because you don't actually want to be committed. But people don't do that. Once they commit to the recurring, they stay for like a year or something like that. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this intervention in particular is it's completely free in a weird way, because if you can see the percents on the y-axis there, about 3% of people give. And we said if 75% of people give, the match will kick in. So the match never kicks in. In fact, we decided to let the match kick in just to be nice. But in fact, what people do is even when the match won't kick in, people still get really excited about it, and it makes them actually want to give more. We've tried this in employee context as well. Like, only if 75% of employees get a flu shot, will we donate some money to charity. So now, if I already got a flu shot, I don't really have an excuse to bug you to get one. In the typical world, I'm just being a jerk. Like, if I go to your office and I say, you should get a flu shot because I got one, get the hell out of my office. But now I can go in your office and say, hey, dude, actually, we're at 73%. And if just a couple more people get a flu shot, we could totally give this money to charity. You don't have to, but do you mind? So we actually liberate people to have conversations about health behaviors. That's kind of another domain in which the contingent thing works because it allows you to talk to other people as well. So that's the first intervention I wanted to talk about. I'm sensitive to time as well. The second one is one that we just did recently, which we call voting for charity. And the idea here is a bit related to one of the earlier studies I talked about, that often retailers will say, we give to this cause, or they'll say we give to these 3 causes, but it's not very clear how they pick them. So the very simple intervention, again, we're always going for very simple. The very simple intervention we did here is, what if customers could vote? And not vote like way ahead of time, and then it happens, and then you read about it later. But what if customers could vote for the cause right at the moment of purchase, so that right then they're thinking, this company is amazing, and they're letting me help them, and we're deciding together where this money should go. So really, really simple intervention. We did this with BJ's, which is like a big box retailer like a Costco or a Walmart, mainly on the East Coast. They do lots of great stuff for charity, just like lots of companies do. They also felt like they weren't really getting a huge uptick from customers and saying, we really like you. So we did a very simple thing. You walk into a BJ's store. BJ's is one of these places, by the way, where sometimes you leave with like 7,000 pounds of rice and 8,000 towels because the deal is so good. So we actually have a lot of wiggle room on having people be like, I love it here, and see what they put in their cart. Really simple. You come in the store and you get a slip of paper that says just this. This month, Waltham's a city in Massachusetts, so this was a BJ's in Waltham. This month, our club is making donations totaling $4,500 to these local organizations, and it just listed them. And they were local organizations, so it's super nice. So you would say, wow, I didn't know BJ's was doing that, thanks. And they give you the flyer. And my guess is what you do with the flyer is you look at it, and then you drop it in your cart or throw it out or whatever you might do. Compare that to this one. This month, the Waltham Club is donating the same amount of money. What we're going to do is we're going to give slightly more to the one that gets the most votes. So everyone will still get some money, which is important because we don't want losers. But one of these will get $2,500, a little bit more than the others. Which one will you vote for? And you have to check it. And by the way, you can't give it to me, unfortunately. I'm not collecting them. You have to hand it in at the cashier when you're done shopping. So what happens then? So now I clicked, oh my God, I love Meals on Wheels. Check it. Now I have to hold the stupid piece of paper the whole time I'm going through the store and shopping. So we're trapping people into keeping the charity thing in their hand the entire time. What we find is that people buy more in the store when they're doing the charity thing, when they're voting than when they're not voting. And in particular, it looks like they do two things. They buy more ethical products, like good for the environment products, which is a tiny effect, but kind of interesting that you're in this moral space. And they also buy, and again, tiny effect, they also buy slightly more store brands. Almost like, oh, I kind of like that major brand, but they're kind of nice, so maybe I'll buy the white label from this store to reward them. Those are the spending effect is robust. Those are on the margin, so it's not just driven by those two things. So we need to do more to figure that out. But the basic effect is there. And the even better place we do this is, because that buy store products made us think, wow, people are changing their feeling about the store. Like, wow, I should really help these people out. Like most of these big box retailers, they actually make most of their money on membership fees every year. You know, when you sign up for the $75 a year or the platinum $250 family membership a year at these retailers, that for them is actually where they make lots of their money. So because their margins are really low. Anyway, that's not important. So they really wanted us to make sure that loyalty increases and membership sign-up increases. And we can do the same exact thing. So you're standing in line to renew your membership, give you a slip of paper, or we give you a slip of paper that you have to vote for, that you have to hand in to the person when you decide whether you're renewing or not. And again, we see I can't show you the data, unfortunately, but again, we see an uptick on renewing your membership. And a membership for someone is, you know, for some people it's about $250 of just free revenue for the store. And it costs them a piece of paper. Like that's all it was a piece of paper and maybe some extra pens. Big effect on letting people vote for the thing that they really care about. OK, then the last thing that I want to talk about is this idea that my student Kate Baraz had, which I totally love, which I can say because it wasn't my idea. So I think it's awesome. So here was Kate's idea, which I think is very interesting. She calls it pseudo-set framing. And the idea is that it's based in this idea that people go absolutely freaking crazy to collect sets of stuff. And there's research on collecting, but actually there's a whole amazing amount of research to be done on what the hell we're doing when we collect stuff. I mean, the psychology of it is just baffling. You know, like, well, I already have 99 of these plates. I need to get a 100th plate. I mean, I just have to get it. Doesn't matter. It's a crazy psychology. Anyway, that's a separate topic. But she leveraged that idea to say, can we use sets? So a lot of sets are real. In a sense, they're real. Like there's US quarters for 50 states. So you have to have all 50 to have the set, and that is the set. But Kate's idea was maybe our impulse to collect and finish sets is so strong that we can just make up completely random sets, and people will have the same psychology of, oh my God, I totally have to finish this set, and they'll do all kinds of crazy things to try to finish it. Think about it this way. So this is actually at an ATM when they ask you to give to charity. This is at Safeway. Do you want to give to charity or not? That's how it typically looks. Or here's one from Susan G. Komen. Here's from United Way. How much do you want to give? What if we could frame those donation amounts as part of a set? So instead of that, it says the number of times you've contributed, and there's a pie chart, and only one of them is filled in. It shouldn't make any difference at all, right? Who cares? It's a pie chart. I don't care about pie charts. Our strong intuition, I'll show you some data. Strong intuition was, oh my God, that pie chart totally needs to be filled in. I didn't realize there was a pie chart involved with this decision. Maybe I want to give more. Or another way to do it is like this, shares of a donation. So instead of $25, $100, 25% of one share, and then you can get to one full share at $100. Shares are made up. We've made up all of the numbers. The idea is you would feel as though I should get to the full share here. One of my favorite examples is anyone from Heifer International here? So Heifer International, you have to go to their website because it's amazing. They did a thing. So Heifer International, you can buy like cows and goats to send to families in the developing world. And they have an interface now where what happens is you see like a cartoon of a goat. And if you give like $25, it only fills up the goat a little bit. And you can drag it over and the goat fills up more. And then if you hit the full goat, it makes a noise. It goes like, meh, or whatever goats do. And you're like, yes! I mean, it's an amazing feeling. It's so irrelevant to the cause and to everything else. But the feeling of filling, I think, is really very underutilized, actually, and a very powerful motivation that we have, especially when it's in the service of doing nice things for, you could use it for all sorts of bad things, but doing nice things for other people. And the coolest part about it is actually, it's totally arbitrary. So here's one with 3. So you're like, geez, I should really do 3. I should do 3 things and get that done. But we can also just change it to that. And people are like, yeah, I really feel like doing 5. I'm probably going to do 5 now, or whatever we want to do. So we do experiments, for example, really just to amuse ourselves, where we have people, the task that you're doing is counting dots on a screen. Like there's like 100 and something dots, little black dots on a screen, and you have to count them and type in the number. And the way that this task works is, and let me be very clear about this, you're not getting paid, and you can stop whenever you want. It's online. So there's no reason to do a single trial of counting dots. It's a terrible task. What happens is when we just tell people, get going, and there's no information, they do about 1, and then they quit and never finish. But if we do something like, did you know that for every 5 dot trials you do, one of these pie pieces will fill up? People will go for like 10 minutes. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's insane how long we'll work to fill up a pie chart for no money when we could totally just quit. So we had this sort of lab data, which is, of course, a very tight environment. We wanted to say, well, can this work in other domains as well? So we did an experiment with an organization that allows you to write letters to seniors in nursing homes who are often socially isolated and could use a card from someone to cheer them up. And the way that it works, it was a standard form, but it says, the letter that you write says, hi, this is just a simple note to spread some holiday cheer. I hope you have a cozy winter and a very happy new year. May your troubles be low and your blessings be, I think that says, may your troubles be less and your blessings be more, and may nothing but happiness come through your door. Happy holidays, Andrew. So I would like to receive these myself, and I'm not elderly. It's a very nice note. And this organization basically encourages people to write. They give you a standard script in a sense and write notes to people, to seniors in nursing homes. Really, actually, a lovely thing to do. And we worked with them to say, what people usually do is they write one and then they're like, yeah, that's probably enough of those. There's enough old people now, and someone else will do it. So how do we get people to write more of those is the very simple question. And we did a very simple experiment. We actually really sent the cards, but very simple experiment. We just said we're going to send a bunch of cards to these people. In the pseudo set, which is where we're playing with people, we say, within each package, we're batching the cards in sets of 4. For no reason. We just said we're batching them in sets of 4. We can also say we're batching them in sets of 6. Doesn't really seem to matter. It's not like an efficiency thing. It's just 4 and 6. And then in the regular version, what they do is, you've completed 1 card. Would you like to write another? Yes, no. What we find is people will write a card and then no. Just like the dots. I'm done, no. But looking at this one, it says this. Thanks. You've completed 25% of 1 batch of cards. Would you like to write another? And if you put yourself in that person's position, it weirdly enough feels like maybe I should write 1 more. Maybe I'm just going to fill up one more pie piece there, and then I'll be done. But then if you put yourself in the position of the person who's done 2, then you're like, well, it's kind of half full. I may as well do another one. And then it's basically full, so why don't I do a 4th? So what we see is the percent of people finishing a full set is made up. No one in the control condition finishes a set. And it's, I mean, we never see effects like this, right? 40% of people write 4 cards, and exactly 4 cards, by the way. There's a batch of 4. So it's a big effect. It doesn't take that much time, but we can really change people's behavior by these sorts of sets. So one of the things that, I don't know if I have another study, but I think I'll skip that one. So one of the things that we want to do with that, of course, is to do it in online environments as well, where we can basically frame your previous giving as part of a set. So rather than say, hey, we know you gave last year, thanks. Instead, it's, we know you gave last year. Did you know that most people give on average 4 times? Boom, there's your pie chart, and you've got 1 filled in. We're not being, of course, we never want to be deceptive, but we're just presenting your giving history in a different way to you as part of an ongoing process or set. And the idea is that it will sort of change the way that you think. I think that's my last slide. So thank you very much. I'll take some questions, I guess? Or no? Anya.
So the pseudo-set stuff, do you think that only works because of the image, or would it work with just the text?
So Anya's question was, the pseudo set, do you need the image, or can it work with just text? The experiment that I just skipped actually is just with text. So it's basically it's just this. So we say, will you buy a textbook for a school? And we can just list it out as either here's how much textbooks cost, or there are 5 textbooks in every set, and 1 is only 1/5 of the set. And again, we can play. So you can imagine, well, maybe people infer that 5 is the right number. But again, we can do 4, 6, 9, whatever, and people will still do it. It works better with the picture, though. So there's something about the thing filling up that really makes us very interested in it. But even just the framing as part of a set seems to help people keep going. Yes?
Yeah, so the pseudo set's really interesting effect. I'm just thinking of the underlying mechanism. So one is that I just like finding pie charts, but another is that this is kind of a decision aid. It's a hard decision for me to know how many things cards I should write. But maybe this helps, or maybe it signals something about social norms. So I was wondering if you had thoughts on the mechanism.
Yeah, great question. So thoughts on the mechanism. Lots of other things could be going on other than just, I got to fill that thing up. And one that you just raised is actually social norms. So maybe it implies they wouldn't have made it out of 4 unless most people do 4, and or they expect most people to do 4. But actually, if we tell, in another version, if we tell people most people do 4, that works a little bit, but not nearly as well as here's the thing with 4 that you need to fill up. So social norms do work in exactly the way you think, but it doesn't seem to be the whole. There's at least some effect of filling the thing that seems to be important. And in fact, when we ask people if they've done 2, if we ask them, how complete does your donation feel? Does your donation feel, excuse me? If it's just 2 out of who knows how many, you say, I'm done. But if it's 2 out of a pie chart, you say, I don't feel that it's done. I need to do more. And that's what actually drives you to finish it. But I think actually it works. You never get an effect that big unless there's like 19 things contributing to that behavior. I think one of them is the filling thing, and then there's more as well. Yes, in the back. Yep.
Would you believe that one of the factors is, I don't want to be in the 25% that you pay for? I mean, so there are like several social factors that I want to speak on.
Yeah, exactly. So in the only if 75% of people give, will a good thing happen? The question is part of the reason that more people give is because they don't want to be in the bad group at the end who's a loser, and it actually happened, and all those people are like, we're the best, and then you're like, I didn't. So you're a jerk. We haven't measured that exactly, but we want to do in a company. No company will let us do this, and you'll see why in a second. So I mentioned in companies what we want to do is say if 75% of people get a flu shot or whatever, fill out the employee survey, then we'll give to charity. Companies are OK with us doing that. But what we really, really wanted to do was have in the entryway an office map, and you could see who'd done it and who hadn't. And then you're like, come on, dude. Like everyone knows it's Larry that hasn't done the thing. And I know it would get exactly what you're saying is like, then you really can't be the only person. Obviously, they're never going to let us do that for probably like a million legal reasons too. But the intuition underlying it, I think, is still there that, oh, I don't want to be the guy who's yeah. Way back. You're the farthest back with a hand. Yep.
So I know you said that the expected value in the match is always lower than the standard match, but isn't it the case that someone is like a decisive person in the contingent match, they will not only achieve their match but everyone else's match? Or do you see a situation where the expected value of that match will be higher than the standard match?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the idea is, again, in the 75%, if it kicks in, this big match will happen. That if you're the 75th person, you just gave like $1 million to charity because all of those other people's donations wouldn't have been matched before that. We're actually doing a project exactly on that, also actually with Kevin on that right now. We had this intuition, and the data were very messy, so we need to rethink it. We had this intuition that if we just told you there's 74 people, would you like to be the next person? That would be really, really powerful. And I do think that part of what is happening is that people in their minds are thinking, maybe I'm the guy. Like maybe it's me that's causing it to kick in, and that's another reason why it might happen. And then you're right, the actual expected value for that person would be huge, but the early people, it would still be lower. Yeah, good question. Yes?
Going back to like your first experiment where you gave people a chance to buy something for someone else,
Yep.
did you notice any difference in the happiness effect as to whether people bought something for a niece or a family member as opposed to whether they gave it to a random person, like a
Yeah. So way back in the experiment I talked about where we gave undergrads money and told them to go spend it on people, the question is, what makes you happier, spending it on someone that you like know really well, a family member or a friend, or spending it on a stranger, or maybe even more extreme, like a charity? So how many people think that spending on someone close to you would make you happier? Raise your hand. We'll get to that in a sec. Yeah, totally. But just on average, spending on someone close to you makes you happier. Spending on a stranger makes you happier. What about I refuse to vote because I'm grumpy? 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So there's a Louis C.K. bit where he says only young people raise their hands. Like if someone says like, how many people here, young people all raise their hand, and he's like, old people are like, I'm not raising my hand. Raise your own hand. Anyway, so I don't know what I was saying. Usually it's about 50-50. So the intuition for give to someone close to you, it's so obvious why that would make you happier. The intuition give someone that you don't know why that would make you happier is also so obvious. The reasons for both are really compelling. We did the research. Some of you will be disappointed to know. On average, you're happier when you give to someone close to you. It does seem to be, and you can think of a million reasons why. One is just they say thanks and hug you and say you're nice. Far person doesn't do any of that for you. But even far person in another country you'll never meet, giving to that still makes people happier on average than spending on themselves. So we see kind of like a main effect of giving, and then things happen up here for sure. But we haven't seen any cases where on average giving is actually lower than spending on yourself. And one of the reasons when we work with nonprofits actually, so Donors Choose, which I mentioned to you, when you give there, when the students write you the note in crayon, you don't know who the students are. You're not allowed to know who the students are legally, but you know who the students are. I mean, you have the crayon letters from these kids. You basically feel like you gave to that specific kid in that specific classroom. So the more that nonprofits get close to, I basically know the person, the more the happiness goes up. And we've done lots of research to show the closer you can get people to feeling like they know them, the more happiness they get. Maybe one more amazing question. I've never seen anyone lower their hand. It's kind of a fascinating thing. Gary.
So I know you want to feel really good, so are you giving everyone copies of your book?
I can do that. I don't know. Wait a minute though. You have to have read it to say, is that a gift or like a curse? It's not. I would be happy to do that actually if we can work that out. That'd be totally fine. Because it's kind of hard to say no. fun of you. Anyway, I think we're going to knock off now. Thank you all so much. Great questions. Thank you.